Wealth has a way of building walls around a man. For Adrian Stone, those walls were as high as the glass towers he owned, polished, unbreakable, and cold. At 32, Adrian was already the youngest billionaire in the city. His empire stretched from luxury hotels to high-end real estate, yet he often felt nothing but silence in the vastness of his marble-clad penthouse. The world saw him as ruthless, untouchable, and impossible to please. But those closest to him, if anyone could be called close, knew he carried scars no money could heal. That was when Emma arrived. She was hired as a maid, young, soft-spoken, and always keeping her eyes downcast. Emma was different from the others. She never tried to flatter him, never sought his attention, and always seemed more interested in the hidden corners of the mansion than in his face. She did her work quietly, her head bowed, as though she carried invisible weights. Adrian noticed her silence. In fact, he noticed everything. And in noticing, he grew curious. One night, when the city glittered beneath the rain and the penthouse smelled faintly of leather and cedarwood, Adrian decided to test her. He lay down on the velvet couch in his study, loosened his tie, and closed his eyes. He would pretend to be asleep and see what she would do when she thought no one was watching. At first, nothing happened. He heard the faint rustling of her cleaning cloth, the distant hum of the city. Then footsteps approached. Emma's breathing quickened slightly. She stopped by his side, and Adrian fought to keep his face relaxed, to not let curiosity give him away. What happened next made his chest tighten in ways he hadn't felt for years. Emma bent down slowly, not to steal or snoop, but to carefully pull a blanket over him. Her fingers brushed the edge of his sleeve, hesitating, as though she wasn't sure if she had the right. Then, in the softest whisper, she said words that froze him to the core. "You look so tired, I hope you'll rest, just this once." Her voice was trembling, tender, like someone who understood exhaustion all too well. She tucked the blanket around him, lingered for a moment, then stepped back and clasped her hands tightly, as though she had revealed too much. Adrian's heart pounded. No one spoke to him like that. No one cared if he was tired. No one dared to wish him rest. And suddenly, he wanted to know everything about this shy maid who carried kindness in silence. The days that followed, Adrian found himself watching her in subtle ways. He noticed how she winced when carrying heavy trays, though she never complained. How she avoided eye contact with the other staff, retreating whenever laughter filled the room. She always arrived early, left late, and never once asked for favors. He tried to speak with her, at first casually. "Do you enjoy working here?" he asked one morning, his deep voice startling her as she arranged flowers in the hall. Her hands faltered, and she stammered, "Why yes, sir. It's an honor." But Adrian saw the flicker in her eyes, fear, or perhaps something heavier. He couldn't stop thinking about it. And slowly, a strange protectiveness took root in his heart. The challenge came when Adrian's family discovered Emma's presence. His stepmother, sharp-tongued and cruel, accused Emma of trying to seduce her stepson for wealth. "These girls always have an angle," she sneered, making Emma pale and shrink into herself. Adrian defended her, his voice icy. "She is nothing like what you think. Leave her alone." But the accusations planted doubts in Emma's fragile spirit. She began to avoid Adrian, keeping her distance, convinced she had no place in his world. That was when Adrian learned the truth. One evening, he found her in the garden, sitting alone on the cold stone bench. Her shoulders trembling, he approached quietly, and before she could stand, he said gently, "Why do you always hide, Emma?" She froze. Then, with a voice barely above a whisper, she revealed her story. Her father had abandoned the family when she was young. Her mother worked herself sick just to feed her children. Emma had dropped out of school to care for her younger siblings, taking every job she could find, dishwasher, laundress, cleaner. She never asked for more than survival. "I don't belong in places like this," she murmured, tears in her eyes. "People like me are invisible. People like you live in the sky." Adrian's chest ached. For the first time in years, he felt anger not at business rivals or betrayals, but at the cruelty of life itself. He sat beside her, close enough that she could feel his warmth. "You're wrong," he said softly. "You belong wherever your kindness takes you. And you're not invisible, not to me. But kindness alone doesn't erase the barriers of class, pride, and fear." The biggest challenge came when Adrian's company faced a crisis. A partner betrayed him, nearly collapsing a billion-dollar deal. The press called him careless, enemies celebrated his downfall, and Adrian's empire teetered on the edge. For the first time, the world saw the mighty CEO stagger. Emma, too, saw it. She saw him come home late, his eyes hollow, his tie loose, his silence heavier than ever. She could have stayed away, hidden in the shadows as always. But she remembered the man who defended her when no one else did, the man who sat with her in the garden and called her visible. So she did the one thing no one else dared. She brought him a cup of tea, set it beside him, and placed her trembling hand over his. "You're not alone," she whispered. Adrian looked at her, truly looked, and the walls around his heart cracked. In her eyes, he didn't see pity. He saw quiet strength, a kind of courage he had never known. It was then he realized, he didn't just want her near him because she was kind. He needed her, because she reminded him of the humanity he had almost lost. Their bond deepened. Emma, though still shy, began to open little by little, and Adrian softened in ways no one believed possible. He laughed again. He allowed himself to rest. He treated his staff with patience instead of cold perfection. But the world wasn't ready to accept a CEO and a maid. Rumors spread, tabloids twisted their story, and even his board of directors warned him to end the distraction. Adrian was forced to make a choice: protect his empire's image or fight for the woman who had taught him to feel again. The night before the decisive board meeting, he asked Emma what he should do. Her answer broke him and mended him all at once. "Don't fight for me if it costs you everything," she whispered. "I couldn't bear to be the reason you lost your dream." Adrian took her hands firmly, his voice shaking. "Emma, don't you see? You are my dream. Everything else is just business." The next day, he stood before the board, before the world, and made his stand. "I will not apologize for loving someone who sees me as more than money. If you think she makes me weak, you're wrong. She makes me stronger. And if my empire cannot stand on that truth, then I will build another one." The board fell silent, and slowly, one by one, they realized his conviction was unshakable. Adrian Stone had never been defeated in business, and now, with Emma at his side, he never would be. Years later, people would still whisper about the maid who stole the billionaire's heart. But for Adrian and Emma, it was never about wealth or scandal. It was about the moment a shy maid whispered a blessing over a man who pretended to sleep, and how that small act of kindness changed two lives forever. Final message: kindness costs nothing, yet it can heal wounds deeper than wealth can reach. Adrian's fortune built walls, but Emma's quiet compassion tore them down. In the end, the greatest riches are not found in towers of glass or empires of steel, but in the courage to see, and to love, the people the world overlooks.